For some people, it depends on the outcome of any decision. For example, does it increase or decrease the amount of happiness in the world? The kind of thinking that focuses on outcomes is called consequentialism. Consequentialism is an ethical school of thought that says the best actions are the ones that produce the best results. Although versions of consequentialism can be traced back to the ancient world, the most famous version is relatively modern. It's called utilitarianism. The origins of utilitarianism lie in the work of the English philosopher Jeremy Bentham, who had a very simple idea. Bentham believed that pleasure is good and pain is bad. Therefore, all our actions should be designed to maximize pleasure and minimize pain. Bentham thought if we could calculate precisely how much pleasure and pain an action would cause, we could know scientifically the most ethical course of action. By focusing on pleasure and pain in general, Bentham also removed selfishness from the equation. What's important isn't my pleasure or pain, it's the overall pleasure or pain that actions generate. We need to consider the big picture. One of Bentham's students was John Stuart Mill. Mill agreed that we should try to create the best outcomes, but disagreed with Bentham on 2 points. First, he thought there were things that matter more than pleasure or pain. Mill thought the attainment of some of the highest goods in life required the experience of some suffering. Mastering a skill, creating a business, or raising a family are all good things, but there can be a fair bit of pain involved. Instead of thinking about pleasure and pain, Mill believed we should focus on harms and benefits. Mill also suggested another important change to Bentham's theory. Bentham thought we should weigh the goods and bads of every single choice we make. Given the amount of decisions we make in a day, that's a pretty exhausting suggestion. That's why Mill suggested instead to work out the actions that will lead to the best outcomes in the long run, and then turn those into rules. That's why Mill's approach is known as rule utilitarianism. For example, when you're thinking about how to manage staff expenses, you'd think about what policy is going to achieve the best outcomes for the business in the long run, and then apply those in every case, instead of trying to deal with every issue on a case-by-case basis. The most common criticism of consequentialism is that it can lead to justifying any number of behaviours, including the oppression and exploitation of others, so long as the outcomes are good enough for a large enough group of people. In ethics and the professions, there are lines that should never be crossed. Consequentialism can be allergic to those kinds of absolutes. It can also be extremely hard to measure competing values. If you're in surplus and you're considering giving all your staff a raise or lowering fees to clients, how do you know who would benefit more? Do you tend to dive into decisions based on gut instinct without counting the costs? Are you sometimes a stickler for processes, even when they seem to be getting in the way of the best results? And do you feel like the ordinary way you do business is getting in the way of doing as much good as you can?